Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Unlocking the Full Power of LuxDesign, Advanced Workflows for Precision Dentistry. My name is Greg Johnson, and I'm the Director of Customer Success here at LuxCreo, and I'm joined today by a true rock star, Dr. Raj Shakay, our Director of Product and Materials. Together, we regularly hear from LuxDesign users that they are comfortable with creating basic aligners and retainers, but they would like to be able to do more complex appliances, but they don't know how to customize things in LuxDesign. This is why we created this webinar. We're going to do a deep dive on some powerful features that you may not have realized were part of LuxDesign and how it can help you create appliances you need for your patients. Our assumption, though, is that you already have a basic familiarity with LuxDesign and you're ready to go to the next level. This presentation should unlock your creative potential by providing you some of the tools that you need to take your treatments to the next level. Some quick housekeeping items before we dive in. Uh, this is a 60-minute intensive session where we will answer questions at the end of the presentation. Your microphones are muted, but please submit questions using the QA feature anytime during the webinar. It's at the bottom on the bar. We're recording this session, and it'll be posted online and available in the coming days. With that, let me turn it over to Raj, our Director of Product and Materials. He literally established the features and workflows we're covering today. So you're learning from the expert. Raj, take it away.
Thank you so much for the generous introduction, Greg. It's more than I deserve. And thank you so much for joining this webinar. I think it's going to be a great experience. Like Greg said, we are going to move a bit quickly. We have a lot of technical ground to cover, a lot of exciting features that can really enable your practice, your creativity, and what you're able to do. Without further ado, we're going to cover three major points. The first major point is going to be on designing transitional retainers, transitional appliances. So this is going to be doing phase one cutouts, building, adjusting custom trim lines, really like fine-tuning trim lines so that they're exactly what you want, where you want them, how scalloped you want, how much interval margin you have, and best practices, how to do custom attachments and adjustments to fill for blockout, like adding and removing blockout by hand, as well as the automated features and when you'd want to do that, optimal fitment for children, and making custom adjustments to device thickness. If you want, a set device thickness, but then you want to reinforce certain areas or thin out certain areas, we'll go over a little bit about that. Next section is going to be about what I consider really fun, building your own attachment library. This is actually a feature we rolled out a few months ago, and it's a really powerful feature. It's really simple to use, but it can be intimidating if you're not familiar with it. And this is basically the ability to to have printed on attachments that are monolithic. That means that they are fully embedded in the shell, and then you print it as one piece with the attachments on the shell. You could design, so we have a couple of basic attachments available in the library, but you could design your own attachments very, very easily using a completely free online software that you could stick right into LuxDesign. And then, how to position these negative versus positive attachments and how to do really fun, really cool stuff like create your own graphics and logos that can go on your appliances to represent your brand or to give your patients a little bit more personality, a little bit more joy and excitement in the devices they're going to wear that's going to transform their lives. And then the last but not least is going to be doing Pontic and custom attachments for sequential liners. So you might say, oh, okay, so we could do Pontics. We have a really cool library of teeth mimicking Pontics with that could be solid or hollow, and that means that you could print a full, a liner arch or retainer arch with a solid Pontic for areas that are edentulous, or multiple solid Pontics for areas that are edentulous. And you could print them in our new material, DCA plus white, to give your patients a really realistic look. It's kind of like a flipper, but it's not. It's great for space maintaining, space expansion, And then also being able to do that with our bridge pontics, which would be like cubic or trapezoidal or donut shaped, which we'll get into. Then you might say, okay, well, that's great, but if I have to do this for every single step in a liner sequence, it's not that convenient. Well, actually, it is. In our newest version of LuxDesign that's being released right now, we have our new sequential mode for Pontics and for attachments. And you could basically save the position from the last step, immediately load it on the next step. You usually don't have to make any adjustments, sometimes very minor, and then it's good to go. So we're going to get into that. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the design of transitional retainers and whatnot. So to get into it, we're going to start with a typical child case. This is a typical, phase one retainer case. And this is a person, they have a mix of permanent teeth and primary teeth, and we're going to need to do some cutouts so that they're able to wear this while their primary teeth are growing in their premolar area. So we first define a plane. Now, typically, I always like to do the AI model, but I'm not going to do that this time. And the reason why is it's really important to me to preserve as much gingival margin as possible for these kinds of cases. It's because I'm doing these cutouts. And when I do these cutouts, I want to basically preserve a decent chunk, about 2.5 millimeters of lingual and buccal bands around the cutouts for stability. So I want a lot of gingival margin in the posterior region. And sometimes when you do an AI trim line, it cuts out some of that. So I'm going to do a normal trim line like you saw here. And then I'm going to go do or normal cut base scan base, and then I'm going to do an AI trim line. The AI trim line is really neat because it's a good starting point because it basically does a great job hugging the dentition, but I want to do more. So I'm going to drag a line to modify the trim line to basically drag it right here. And I'm just going to left click and drag it, and I'm able to modify trim line by dragging it like this. So it's very easy to modify your trim line when you do it and want to create a good amount of gingival margin so that when I create these cutouts, they're pretty stable. This is something like there's a transitional retainer appliance that I'm trying to design. So basically, patient's going to be wearing this for several months at minimum. So I want to make sure that the repeated stress around around these bands, around these cutouts, does not lead to any sort of tearing or breaking, which is why I try to do this reinforcement, right? So, we're just going to trace this a little bit. And then I could also drag and reposition nodes to create finer adjustments. So I could drag the nodes like this. You can see here, let's just left click the node and just drag it as I want to create these nice finer adjustments. But I could also go a little bit more. I could hold control and I could click along the line and I could add nodes. So what that allows me to do is really create this fine tune. So if I want to create a really fine scallop, if I have like, a bit of complicated dentition for a patient, this one is not too complicated, but just as an example, then I could use the control click to really sculpt around where I want to be. And then if I control click the node itself, I can remove the node if I feel like I've gone too far. So once I'm happy with that, you see the red arrow, I click on create cutout, and then I start drawing. I just draw where I want the cutout. So there's a phase one appliance, so I'm just going to cut out. And I tend to make these, when I do this myself, I tend to be pretty conservative, right? I want to make sure that there's a lot of stability, thick bands around and a lot of space for teeth to emerge without any interference with the appliance. You may want to go a little bit more aggressive. You know your patient better than I do. If you feel like you could make a smaller box, a thinner device, or then go for it. I know plenty of patients have, and we'll go over some examples where that was the case. Or so but I kind of want to do it. So once I've drawn it, I hold control, and when I click, and it basically locks in that cutout, right? I just control click once I've drawn the pattern, it locks in the cutout, and then I modify it by dragging where I want to be. As you can see here, I just drag it with my left click, and after I control click to lock it in, and you want to click edit first, and then you do that. Once you're done, then you go back to create, you click create again, and then you do it again on the other side, right? So once you hold control click to lock in the circle, it goes back to the create mode, so you do want to click the edit before you make any modifications. But basically, you click create, you drag it, you hold control click, you click edit to do any modifications, and then you can click edit again to go out of edit mode, and then you'll go back into the trim line and you can make any final revisions to your main trim line. So you can see here, this is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. Now, if you draw the trim line too close to the cutout, it will give you a warning saying that it's under 2.5 millimeters. You can't ignore it. We recommend that you try to keep it at least 2.5 millimeters for a longer lasting retainer, but that's sort of our guidance. So once you're happy with that, you go to the gap fill step, and is a child is about I think she's about 9 or 10. So you want to do a tight gap fill, right? So tight is more for children and is an interproximal gap fill. It's not a blackout based gap fill. That'll be next, but it's an interproximal gap fill, and that's going to apply digital wax in the interproximal regions. Once you do that, you can decide to add or remove digital wax from the blockout. So we have two scrollers, size and intensity. Size will be the size of your paintbrush, and intensity will be the amount that is added or removed per sweep. Now you can see here I'm removing some of it, and I'm removing some of it and basically just making the modifications as is, right? So this is how it is. And then I could add some more. So if I want to add a little bit of material in the front, I'm removing some in the back because it'll be better for my posterior retention. That's just sort of my experience. But then I'm adding some in the front, removing some in the back, adding some in the front, just as an example. So once I'm happy with that, I could go to next. And now it's time for me to set my thickness and my fitment. So normally we recommend normal for a child that has essentially no undercuts and no attachments. We can go to tight or extra tight. And that kind of depends on your experience. So tight is usually pretty good. Extra tight is going to be sort of your best fit for these patients that have essentially no undercuts and no attachments. And but in some cases, right, maybe the patient has a little bit of discomfort if they find that it's too tight, in which case you could use a tight function. But in most cases, extra tight's pretty good for these kinds of child cases with no undercuts and no attachments, right? If they do have attachments, you do want to stick to normal. So that is, and then once you do that, I usually make these retainers pretty thick, at least 1 millimeter, 1.1, 1.2 is pretty much my bread and butter, and then I can do it. So now you can create a label. You have convex and concave. Concave cuts in, convex it basically extrudes out of the shell at 0.35 millimeters as shown here. So you can make your labels. Now there's a really cool feature here, and it's a feature where you could add and remove material. Similar to your gap fill, you have your size and your intensity. So keeping it 2 millimeters, maximizing the intensity. You can see here, I can make this buckle band pretty thick. And that's great for reinforcing the buckle band. I could also go to the smoothing tool. The smoothing tool is really nice for smoothing the same amount of material across the space, right? So it's the same amount of stuff of material added, but it's smoothed across the space. It takes off the transit. It takes smooths out the transitions at the ends. So now you can see in the cross section, right? There's a 1.1 millimeter device, but because I added material, it's about 1.8 millimeters, right? So you can see here, you can see the 1.8 millimeters, whereas the area that I didn't add, you can see that that's still about 1.1 millimeters. So you can see the difference. So if you feel like, hey, I'm making a pretty thin band here, I want to make sure that it lasts a long time, that's reinforced. You can structurally reinforce in this step. So I'm going to quickly do it on the other side, and then yeah, we're gonna move on. So here, my buckle band's just a little thinner, so I changed my size down just a little bit, and here we go. So like I said, I'm using a smooth transition here, and it just smoothens it out, makes it a little bit nice and even. Remove sharp transition and editor remove material. So it's pretty good. Yeah. And then when I am happy with that, I am ready to move on. Let me just make these final adjustments. You kind of see how it sits on the model here. And we're going to go to finish. So once it's finished, and I did make a lower one as well, but it's basically exactly the same as the upper, same steps. I'm going to go ahead and send this to LuxFlow and using our normal one click, very easy, nothing new. So check the one click, click confirm, and you can see here by the time it takes me to press Alt Tab, it's already supported, oriented, nested, and it's ready for me to slice and send it to printer. So that's basically it for that. So so this is not a theoretical thing. This is something that a lot of our doctors have been using with great success. So we've had a lot of I think the number one use is using it as a retainer, transitional retainer. After palatal expansion, for example, is really common. And then in the interface treatment, when their primary teeth are growing in, put on a transitional appliance until their primary teeth have grown in, and then you can resume the treatment, usually with the interior gap. So, but in some cases, you could go way further, right? So, and this is something that we're really encouraging, and this is something that everyone can do a transitional retainer, but what's really hard to do, and what's is to create your own sequential aligner that also allows for primary teeth eruption. So here, this doctor did for an 8-year-old, 8 months of treatment, did sequential aligner treatment with eruption guide cutouts, and every single aligner had the eruption guide for a phase one treatment, and you can see here the before and the after with the eruption guide, and you can see we allowed for ample room for the primary teeth to grow in, and the patient finished their treatment with a great alignment. So I'm going to transition over to Greg to recap this, and then we'll move on.
Raj, uh, really great overview and a fantastic example. Uh, Custom cutouts allow for that easy generation of transitional retainers, phase one transitional retainers, as well as other custom devices like sling elastics or periostents. Uh, LuxDesign's other customization tools allow for customizing trim lines that consider the curvature and gingival exposure, using intuitive painting tools to optimize fitment around difficult anatomies, like the lingual bars, or for reinforcement of the shell. The list goes on. So what I'd like to do is have Raj show you some other things. So Raj, what do you have up next?
Oh yeah. So we covered transitional retainers, and you could do a lot more with cutouts as well. There's a lot of really cool things that our doctors have been doing. Perio stents, periograph stents is a big one that we've seen. We've seen making really cool elastic cutouts for sling elastics. We'll get into some of these a little bit later, but really it unlocks a lot of creativity. But the next thing we're going to talk about is something that should also unlock a lot of creativity, and that's called building your own attachment library. So in this section, we're going to talk a bit about how you design custom attachments, practice logos and other graphics, and add them to your LuxDesign attachment library, negative versus positive attachments, and also applying custom attachments to the device. So and really like positioning them optimally. So I'm going to start with a program that I really love. That's not a LuxCreo program. It's actually made by Autodesk, and it's called Tinkercad. You may have heard of it. It's available on your browser. It's also available. It's an iPad app. I think it's also an iPhone app. It's so easy that my neighbor's 5-year-old daughter taught herself how to use it and make stuff for her Barbie dream house in my basement on my FFF printer. So it's so easy that a 5-year-old girl taught herself how to use it in her free time. So that's why it's really elegant. It's really simple. So Autodesk, so you make a free account. It's ultra free, super, super free. And then you make a 3D design. And it's basically you assemble blocks, different basic shapes. You could add or subtract them. and you can make any attachment or to add to the library. So one thing about our attachments is they have a maximum size, import size of 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters. And I what I do is I just make the default um, size of my Tinkercad platform 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters. So you can see here. And then I very simply will just add shapes. So I'm going to make a very simple hook. So it's going to be three pieces, right? One is going to be a square base. So I'm going to make a 5 millimeter or, yeah, like a 3 millimeter by 3 millimeter square base. And I'm going to make it about a millimeter tall. And again, I want to make sure that my maximum height's 5 millimeters. So I'm going to make the square base a millimeter tall. And I do that just as you can see here by setting these dimensions. I'm going to position it where I want in this 5 millimeter box. And then I'm going to make a shaft for my hook. So I'm just going to draw a cylinder that sits on top of the square. I'm going to position that. I'm going to make that set the dimensions as you can see here. So I'm going to make that about 2.5 millimeters, so a little bit smaller than my square base, right? I'm going to set that right on top of my square base. I'm going to set my height. So I'm going to make that about 4 millimeters because I want my overall height to be 5. So 1 plus 4, and then I'm going to use that as a guide to set the last piece. So I'm going to set that right on top of the square. And adjust it like so. And then I'm going to do my last piece. So another cylinder. And I'm going to make that, yeah, about a millimeter so tall, make it smaller as well. But this one, I'm going to make it an oval shape. So set one dimension at 2.5 millimeters, like so. So another dimension, about 4 millimeters-ish. So now it's a nice oval. I'm going to set my height. And I'm going to position it at the top of my hook. And make sure that it's nice and nice and well positioned. So when I tilt it, so that I want to make sure that everything sits within this 5 millimeter uh, box or cube, and then sink it down because that's the height of that rod is my guide for where 5 millimeters is. So it's just position it just flush. I'm going a little slow. And there you go. And you can see here, it takes me about 3 minutes, actually, 3 minutes to make this hook from start to finish. And I'm able to make a custom attachment to import into my LuxDesign custom attachment library in just like 3 minutes. It's that simple, right? So just as about 1.5 millimeters, get it right there. And there I am. That's my hook ready to go into LuxDesign, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge it into one piece. I'm going to export it as an STL, and that's it. That's the and now we're going to put it into LuxDesign. But first, I need to make an icon. So the icon is what you see when you pick the attachment in the attachment library. There's a graphical icon, so that's an image. You could take a screenshot basically here to upload as your icon. I like to, I have a sort of a professional aesthetic, so I like to go into like a free website called bustl.com and drag the STL file into that and use that to make my screenshot. Very simple. So I'll just quickly do that. Just drag and drop, and then screenshot it, save it as a JPEG, and here we go. Okay, yeah, call it demo hook or something. And then we'll go ahead and toss this into LuxDesign. So you go to Tool in your toolbar at the top. You see where the yellow arrow is. Click on Attachment Library, and then you press plus to add a new attachment. You can see the plus sign, right? And you press plus to add a new attachment. And then you have two options, upload or import attachment. So you want to click upload for a new attachment. And you can see there's two things, negative and positive, right? Negative is basically an attachment that sits on the intaglio of the inside of your shell, and positive, it sits on the outside of your shell, and we can automatically detect it. So we'll get into how that works soon. And then the import STL is if you have a friend or a colleague who has created an attachment, they could export it as an XML file, give it to you. You could import it as an XML file, and you get everything just preloaded right there. So it's just import and click yes. And if you click export, you could export your attachment as an STL the same way. So you can see here, I created my attachment just like that. Put in my picture, put in the thing, and there you go. So, well, yeah. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly make a negative attachment, right? And uh, and I'll show you why. It's going to be very simple, just a quick cylinder. That's all I'm doing, and that way I can show you how a negative attachment works as well, right? So same thing that I did for the positive, but here I'm just going to make, about a 1.5, 1 millimeter cylinder, and make it about 3 or so millimeters tall. Export the STL. Now, same thing, make myself a an icon, and then do the same thing here, make myself a negative attachment. So name it, upload, um, put in the file, put in the picture. Now I'm going to set it to negative and press export, right? So as an example, we'll go into the phase one retainer that we just made, and we'll go over here and we'll set up some positive attachments. So you can see here, I click add, right? And you can see here, I could click demo hook, and then I click add, right? And I stick it here, and I position it, and I could rotate it a little bit. So you click rotate and you drag and click to tilt the click attachment along the drag axis. So you can see here, I can rotate it in any direction I want. I could make it upside down if I wanted to, where the base sticks out. I could make the hook point towards the gum or towards the incisal edge. Obviously, you usually want it towards the gum. And I could then click move, and I can move it in or out of the or side to side, basically anywhere I want. So you can see here, I'm moving it in a little bit, right? Like this. And I could also scale it. I can move by if I click scale, then I could move it. I could make it larger or smaller. You can make it twice as small or twice as large. So really that 5 by 5 by 5 can become 10 by 10 by 10 by scaling if you so desired. And then I could copy it. That is really powerful. I click copy, and I could just take exactly what I did, same orientation, everything, and I could basically copy it to a new location, right? So if I've done something specific, if I have scaled it to a specific size and I want to preserve a uniform scaling, then I could just copy it and it preserves all that. And then I could position it where I want on the arch. I'm going to click rotate. I'm going to drag it just to tilt it a little bit more evenly so that it's in the right position like this. And now I'm going to add a negative attachment. So if I click negative, we made this negative cylinder. Now this is a really cool thing. It's like a push point. It's something that Dr. Lehman has done a lot of research on. I think he talked about it at AAO last year, and he might talk about it again this year. But it's negative attachments that can sit on the inside of a tooth and barely protrude and can reduce or eliminate the need for traditional attachments. But it's just printed on, and it shows up really well. It can only really be done with 3D printing. So you can put it where you want, and it creates a push point for your teeth. And you can see here that when I merge, it merges perfectly. So you might have thought, hey, well, I saw that when you were pushing the attachments in and positioning the attachments in, they were poking through on the other side of the shell, and they all were. The cylinder was poking through on the outside. The hooks are poking through on the inside. But when we click merge, because it knows what a positive and negative attachment is, it only shows up on the outside or the inside of the shell based on its being positive or the negative attachment, respectively. So it's pretty smart about that. So when you want to do this, when you send it to LuxFlow, you do it normally, but you turn off one click. You want to turn off one click. And the reason why you want to turn off one click is because you want to enable the add attachment support. So this is what tells the software that you have attachments and that you want those attachments to be supported because they might otherwise not print as well. So you click support adaptation and attachment adding support, right? And then all that does is it tells the software, hey, there are attachments. It reads those attachments and it automatically applies supports to those attachments wherever they may be. So you can see here, they have attachment, they have supports exactly where they need to be. So you could guarantee that they're going to print perfectly well, right? And that's it. So there's one more thing that I want to show you here, though, and that is the logo and graphic attachments, right? So this is really, really cool. I think people are going to really like this. A lot of people have been asking for this, and it's the ability to create custom graphics, whether it's your logo or cute animals, um, into on as custom attachments to be able to put on your custom appliances, right? So so we can do this using the same software that we showed you, Tinkercad, that same website slash iPad app, and what's called an SVG graphic. So what is an SVG graphic? It's a scalable vector graphic. It's an XML based resolution independent image format, and it uses mathematical formulas to define lines, shapes, and colors so they can be scaled at any size without quality loss. It's really cool for web-based graphics. It's basically one of the most standard graphics out there. And what kind of images make the best attachments? Well, we recommend having monochromatic or grayscale images with really good contrast. And if your logo isn't monochromatic, that's fine. But we really want there to be a good contrast. So we recommend filling them on a transparent background. So a filled in logo on a transparent background really shows up the best. And you want to avoid outlines. They're too thin and they may not render very well as an attachment. So you can see here if you have a thinly outlined graphic like you see on the teddy bear at the top, that's really not going to show up so well. But if you have a filled in graphic like you see these animals, a giraffe and the elephant, the bottom, those are going to show great. Then you might think, hey, well, I have a practice logo. I have 8-year-olds who really want teddy bears or giraffes on their aligners, but I don't really have those in SVG. I have like JPEGs. What can I do there? Well, that's okay because there are numerous ways to freely convert. Photoshop and Illustrator have native support for SVG graphics, but you don't need that. You just go to picsvg.com or something, which is just a free tool on the internet, fully free. You load in your picture, you can set an internal filter. So in this case, sometimes you might only have an outline, but you could even set an internal filter to make it a solid. You may not have a black and white image, but you could set it to black. You basically just set an internal filter to make the inside color solid. Internal one usually does a trick. And then you just set the picture to black and the color to black. And you could see here, I took the LuxCreo logo with orange and I made it a black and white SVG. In fact, that SVG is sitting in the top right corner of this PowerPoint slide, right? And then all I have to do is drop that into Tinkercad, as you can see here. And So I'm gonna so here I decided to do a Triceratops, and the reason why is I have a boss. The boss is my 2-year-old son, and he loves dinosaurs. And I asked him what his favorite dinosaur is, and he said Triceratops. So I decided to that we're gonna put a Triceratops on an aligner. So again, we're just gonna make this like a 5 by 5, yeah, 3 by 3-ish. Set the height to about 3 millimeters tall on my platform. Yeah, so 5 by 5 Triceratops with a 3 millimeter height, and I'm just going to export that. I already have a picture of it because the picture is what I started out with. So I don't need to make an icon. I just go to Tool, Attachment Library. I create a new attachment. I upload my Triceratops from Tinkercad, from loading that SVG graphic. Set my original picture, which is a Triceratops here, and I name it. I'm gonna name it Triceratops. Make it a positive attachment because I want the outside of my shell. It's a logo. And now I'm gonna go to a random aligner part. I'm gonna just load go stick it on a liner shell, as you see here. So click on Triceratops. Click the Triceratops here. Now notice I'm gonna rotate it. The first thing I need to do is I need to rotate it, make it, the right. So you can see here, I drag it. If I drag it from the top, it's going to tilt, right? So I'm kind of uh, doing it a little haphazardly. And now I want to scale it to make it a bit bigger. It's a bit small. And now I'm going to move it, click move, and I'm going to drag it so that it embeds, so that it barely protrudes from my thing. So like, as you probably noticed, I like to make my stuff pretty tall, much taller than I need to be. Then I click merge when I'm happy and the reason why is when I click merge, only the part that's on the outside of the shell shows up. So I can make it pretty tall. So that's good. And that's how you take your practice logos or cute animals or whatnot, dinosaurs, and turn them um, into logos or shapes or art designs on your devices. Really, that touch of customization can go a long way to increase compliance and a lot of other things. And with that, I'll take it over to Greg.
Yeah, Raj, thank you. Listen, I've always really loved the concept of being able to create custom attachments. I think it really opens up what all of you can do with our technology, and using a simple free online software like Tinkercad really makes it kind of effortless. Especially being able to do attachments both inside and outside the gel, and be confident that LuxFlow will make sure it's supported. Um, you know, uh, I think the whole idea of using this feature to do a custom logo or a custom charm, we all know that Triceratops is the best dinosaur, and your son is a legend for picking that. So, it's endeared him to my heart. But the question is when do I get a Triceratops on my aligner? You need to get to work on that. But I know you've got to show some more amazing tools, so let's move forward.
Yeah, and I do. And a quick note about that, about putting art on your liners. A lot of our doctors have found that kids have a hard time being compliant. Putting a cute animal that they love, their favorite animal, their favorite, their soccer ball or football or whatever on Broncos logo, Bears logo. I'm a Bears fan. On their teeth really does improve compliance. It really does go a long way. It's funny, but it works. So we talked about design transitional aligner retainers. We talked about just building your own attachment library, and I hope that both of these two really enable your creativity. I hope your juices are flowing, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, there's so much I can do right now." But there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and that is ponting and custom attachments for sequential liners, right? And we're going to talk about how to place Pontics, the types of Pontics that we have in LuxDesign. And then we're also going to talk about something that is a great mover for convenience, then that is in sequential aligners, being able to take the Pontics that you so carefully placed and the attachments that you so carefully placed for doing hooks and other really cool things you can do attachments like bite turbos or bite ramps or twin block ramps or things like that, and really taking that and copying it over to multiple sequential liner steps. Because you might think, oh, I can do that, but with all this labor, that's going to be really hard for aligners. It's not so hard with the and is with our latest version of LuxDesign that's coming out just about right now. And so first, I want to go over the types of Pontics in LuxDesign. So a tooth. We have a tooth for every position, right? And it's a really nice looking tooth. And we have this in both universal notation and FTI notation, as you can see here. And then we also have, and the tooth Pontics are great because, you match them to different missing teeth. You could have, if the patient has three missing teeth, that you want covered, you could put three different tooth Pontics. You could make them hollow or solid, and that's really great. Solid is awesome because we have a material called DCA plus white that really that creates a really natural looking solid tooth Pontic while also being it is a brightening liner, so it also makes your teeth look brighter, but it also shows the character of your teeth at the same time. It is a mixture of brightening and transparent, but when you have a solid Pontic, it looks quite good and quite natural as well. So it's a really great option for that. And it's great also for space maintaining, for space expansion as well. We also have cubic and trapezoidal bridge design. So these are hollow only, but reinforced structurally from their design. Cubics are really great for single tooth space maintainers, and trapezoidal is really great for it has a larger base, so it has improved stability. So it's really great for a multi-tooth space maintaining as well. So if you have a two or even three teeth that need to be space maintained or need to be managed throughout a retainer treatment or a liner treatment, trapezoidal bridge design is really awesome. And then the final is a donut bridge design, which is a really cool, innovative design that we're really proud of, and that is great for maximizing interproximal contact and also and having great comfort, but also being able to have a great positive pressure. So we really like this, and our doctors have found that this is really, really awesome for sequential implant site expansion. They've had some good clinical success with that as well. So with that, we have uh, this is done very easily. So I'm going to start with an aligner case, right? And it's a four-step aligner case, so it's typical to what you might want to make to get a patient started. And you can see here that this patient they have both a significant overbite and so there's some class two going on, and they're also edentulous. They have one missing tooth in their mandibular. So we'll start, of course, with our defined plane. I always like to show this because it's always the number one thing that we start with. It's really important. It's a base of your pyramid that makes everything else successful. And then I'm going to start with lower, just so I can show you the Pontic. This is where you have your Pontic. So this case came preloaded with a trim path, but I made a few modifications to the trim path just to make it a little bit nicer. And so we're going to use that trim path that I modified for subsequent, and we'll show you that. And then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the tooth as number 19, select number 19, and I'm going to position it here, exactly where the gap is, right? And then the first thing I want to do is I want to check the solid slider. You can see here where the blue arrow is. And then I'm going to scale it down. This is way too big. So I hold it, I left click it, and I move it up, and I move my mouse up or down, and I'm able to make it big or small. So I made it a bit smaller. And then I have it click on move, you can see with the purple arrow, and I position it just to have a relevant height. And now I'm going to rotate it to tilt it so that it is in line with the other surrounding teeth in the region, right? So you can see here how I'm doing that. And I want to make sure that Pontic does not overlap with adjacent teeth. So I want to keep the interproximal contacts just a small gap between the adjacent teeth in the interproximal region. I then check on it. I do use the interference check, and if I use the interference check, then it'll show a pattern or a warning if I am in occlusal overlap with the antagonist. In this case, I wasn't. And then I'm able to fill the gap. And you can see exactly how that solid Pontic manifests itself right here. Right. So now I'm going to go ahead and create my appliance. So create my shell. And When that's done, I'm going to now set my label. So you can see here, this is done with the Pontic. Click next. And now I'm going to set a label. Now I can see here that the label is already one. And this is in the normal control mode of our thing, but it's still very nice and easy. It already predicts that it's one. So I don't have to write the label, I just set it. We have two modes here. You can see with the red and blue arrow, we have label text align to mesh and label text align to perspective. So perspective means that when I scroll it, it basically keeps it normal to my scroll. I prefer that personally, but some people prefer the other. I'll play around with both and see what you prefer for adding labels. And then I want to create my class two hooks, right? So I am just using these nice buttons. I'm going to position them, as you can see here. So now I want to rotate it. I'm going to scale it up just a little bit too once I'm happy. So I'm going to position it just a little bit. You can see how I uh, reposition the attachment. It's a 2D axis relative to the view. A little bit of reinforced learning here from before from the first part, and then I'm going to scale it. In this case, you can see I could scale it down or I could scale it up. So in this case, I'm going to scale it up a little bit. You can see here, and I encourage you guys to play around with this when you're done with this webinar. Just load up whatever case you have and play around with it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to put it in the other location here, and you'll find out when you play around with it yourself that it's this is really easy, right, to do, and really intuitive. You'll get it in a second. And then I'm going to copy, and you could copy as many times as you want. So you can see here, just for a joke, I copied it to the interior. I don't really want that. I can select it by clicking on this menu here. I can select the attachment. So I'm going to delete that attachment. I selected it. It's highlighted orange, and I deleted it. Now I'm happy. So I'm going to merge these two, right? You can see the solid Pontic in the bottom. And now I'm going to finish. And so that's done. And now you might think, hey, all right, so I did all that, but do I really have to do all that positioning and all that shaping for all eight appliances in this? That's going to take me forever. The answer is it's not. It's really easy. And this is in our OTA that should be releasing imminently or today or already. I think today. And you go to define trim line. And here I say use imported trimline from the last tab. And I do that because I made a few modifications and I from the trimline that auto exported from your treatment plan, which sometimes happens with eLabs or Titan, it auto exports. And here it's time for me to add the Pontic. So all I have to do is click load Pontic, see what a red arrow is. And it automatically loads that Pontic exactly in the position it was when you placed in the last step. Now, if you're doing space expansion or things like that, or if your teeth are shifting quite a bit there, you may want to make a few minor adjustments, usually to scale or to rotation, but they're very minor. And in most cases, you don't really need to make any adjustments, right? In this case, I didn't need to do anything. And it could be that you only need to make adjustments every 3 or 4 steps, but it really takes like 3 seconds to do it. It's so easy and it's very intuitive. Right. And you only need to do it, of course, if your teeth are shifting or the space is changing during the course of your treatment, right? So so like I did, I just click copy and I click next after doing a quick check. And now you see number two is automatically loaded for label, right? It automatically knows that this is step two. I click load, right? You see the red arrow here. I click load and it automatically takes the attachments from the previous step and it puts them exactly where they are. And by the way, that's the same case if you have a label, if you have a logo, right, that you put in, if you did a custom logo of the Triceratops or of your own brand or whatever, then that will automatically be placed exactly like the buttons. So you do that, and I'm just going to complete this case so you could kind of see how easy it is, right? So load Pontic, fill the gap, go to the next step, and we're gonna keep this up. And you know, if you think this looks easy, it is easy. So this a 4 step, when you're doing it like this normal mode with copying your Pontic and your attachment, a 4 step treatment, 4 step case, so it's 8 shells. It takes about like 15 to 20 minutes to go to do, including your design, your export to LuxFlow, you're slicing, and you're sending to printer. It's about 15 to 20 minutes. And, I think fast track is a little bit faster, but when you're doing solid Pontics and you're doing your custom attachments, this is really, really damn fast for something that is so powerful, so unique, and something that you really can't do like with any other methodology. It's really hard. You can't thermoform this. You can't really design this any other way. And our system with DCA with DCA plus white, it has the right mechanical properties, the right stress retention, the right toughness and resilience to be able to pull these kinds of designs off and have the kind of retention needed to really make this work. So that's really the important takeaway here. So here I'm now moving to the interior, and you can see here I made a few changes to my trim line. I added some nodes. I made it a little bit more sculpted. As you can see here, it's quite nicely sculpted in the interior because of the additional nodes I added. And you can see I'm adding my buttons. I'm going to take that import. Like I said, I modified a trim path, added more buttons. So I imported from the last step. And usually when you're copying your buttons from the last step, um, you don't usually have to change it too much unless you're doing significant rotation on that tooth, which you might be doing that with your canine. You might be rotating your canine, so you might if you're putting a button on your canine, which is pretty common for these kinds of cases. You may want to make a few minor adjustments there, but usually it's very minor and it takes just 1 or 2 seconds. It's quite intuitive. So once you get used to this, you'll find that you're designing these really, really powerful things where printed on attachments, negative attachments, push points, solid pontics, copying them over step by step with very little effort. You're able to create these really nice custom appliances for your patients, custom treatments for your patients that differentiates your practice, differentiates your treatment, and allows you to really push the boundaries of what is possible in orthodontic treatments. And that's really what we're about. It's really about enabling your creativity, um, your putting control back into your hands as doctors, and really putting you in charge of your own treatments again. So once that's done, we're going to export. We're going and because we're using these attachments, I'm going to uncheck the one click. We're going to do a 70-degree angle because we have quite a few aligners. And you can see here, like we did before, I'm going to make sure that attachment adding support is checked. I'm going to generate, and I'm going to make sure that, you can see here, once everything is added and everything is staged. So next step, I click on layout, and everything is nicely done. And you can see here that the supports are nicely added. So, so yeah. Um, so I'm gonna hand it off to Greg here for the recap, and we're good.
Yeah, listen, LuxDesign enables creation of all types of pontics depending on the clinical need. You can see some real world examples here, actually. Real tooth pontics provide those aesthetic benefits, but maintain the space. You can see with the DCA Plus on the upper left, with our DCA regular clear in the upper right. Uh, and we also have those other shapes. They're great for preserving the space and can be used for single tooth expansion or implant sites. Being able to translate it across a treatment plan makes working with Pontics and attachments that much easier. And if you haven't already, check out that DCA plus white resin. It's a good solution for solid Pontics. Like in this example, it looks great and preserves the space in that lower right-hand corner image. Being cognizant of time, if Raj, you could take me to the next slide. Uh, realizing that we have some questions that we need to answer. I'm going to go through this, and we're likely going to extend just a little bit beyond the hour, so that we can answer the questions. It will be in the recording if you can't stay, but we'll also answer the questions and get them distributed as well. So you've seen everything that we've gone through, and this is where we're bringing it all together. The appliance you see to the left has both custom cutouts and custom attachments for sling elastics. You can see that at the posterior of the device. Um, we have a custom LuxCreo logo attachment that we've added to that first molar, and we've done incisor Pontics to maintain space. Uh, in this particular case, we printed it in DCA plus white so that we could provide that more natural aesthetic. Um, and I hope and I trust that your gears are turning with all the possibilities, and with the tools that we provide in LuxDesign, things like using cutouts for those phase one retainers, sling elastics, periodontal healing stents, using custom attachments for hooks, turbos, ramps, being able to share your innovations amongst your peers, or to add that personalization and branding for you or your patients. Like Raj said, there's that personalization can absolutely help with compliance. Um, Being able to use that Pontic tool for the solid tooth mimicking, printing them directly into the shells. That's what we're trying to do with these technologies, is innovate and provide you with the tools to be able to make really fantastic devices for your patients. So appreciate your time. Raj, thank you very much for sharing all of the wonderful items that are available currently and in the upcoming version of LuxDesign. And to all the attendees, thanks for your attendance, and really looking forward to seeing what you do with all the tools that you have available to you. And hopefully, you've got some really innovative ideas coming out of this particular session. Thanks again.